stay awake through the last couple panels. Although it feels like this next one's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to it. So we're going to invite Paige McCrensky up to talk to us about visual trends with Getty Images. So welcome, Paige. I don't know if you this is your clicker. If you
That's my clicker.
yeah.
Great. Thank you. Hello. I hope I meet your expectations. Though it's always fun to talk about creative. So I'm Paige. I am a vice president of marketing and brand communication at Getty Images. So I don't specialize in the political arena, but I think it's one of the things that we have is at Getty Images being our 25th years. We have great insight. Whoop, thank you. Better. Great insight into what's happening in the world and what's happening with consumers and how we can leverage this insight of visual storytelling to tell the stories that we need to tell in order to connect with our customers and our voters. So our mission, I know works. Our mission is about moving the world with imagery, and we feel really strongly that images have the power to create change. And in fact, you may all have seen this image, and I think my colleague Heather shared it as well. But this was taken by one of our staff photographers, John Moore, who actually won the World Press Award for this image. And this is talking about how one image at one moment, with the access and the expertise, can affect change. And that's something that we really feel that if you change the image, you can change perceptions. And you need imagery that's powerful, relevant, and increases engagement. And that's what is core to us, and we feel a responsibility to not just take the images, but to help affect change. So I think everyone in this room knows that visual storytelling is really the language of our times. It's how we communicate. Things have evolved so quickly, and they're constantly changing. But almost 84% of all communication is now visual. It does look formatting's a little off. But I think you understand. So if you have an image or video, you increase more retweets, you get more views online, and you get more engagement on Facebook. So images and that storytelling is really important, but it's finding that right image. So anyone can stick an image in, but how do you find that right image that's going to resonate with the message that you want, to the audience that you want? And I think we're all so inundated in our day-to-day lives with imagery. How are we connecting, and how do you connect with an image that's going to make a difference? So we at Getty, we do a lot of work and a lot of research. So it's based on data and insight. So as I said, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary. We have billions and billions of searches on our site and hundreds and thousands of downloads. And what's interesting, because we work with the creative community, with agencies and brands, we're kind of ahead of the curve of what's happening. So when we start searching and we see search data, that may be for a campaign that's launching in 6 months. So we start seeing what happens before you actually see it in the campaign or in the ad. And we take all this data and we use it to inform our photographers. So we have a network of 250,000 contributing photographers around the world, and videographers. We have our own staff photographers, and we educate them on how to shoot. What are people looking for? Do we need more of little boys running down the beach? Do we need more sunsets? Do we need more people shaking hands? Whatever that may be. We use all of this data to inform our photographers and educate them. And also, how do you have an image that has room for white space? How do we make sure, as I think you heard earlier from Heather, that its logos are not in there? So we educate and we work with our photographers. And we do all of this research. And we started this to really inform our photographers, but we started now taking it out to some of our partners. So how can we leverage all this expertise we have with our breadth and scale for you to take advantage of? Then we have creative collaboration. So we just don't take these images and stick them up on the site. We work with them. We art direct, we give direction, and we have 70,000 exclusive photographers that we work with, and that's where we give a lot of expertise on how to find that right image, how to shoot what needs to be shot. And then we curate it. So it's not like user-generated content, we get it, we stick it up on the site. We have editors that work and curate it in combination with AI. So we have our creative expertise, our editors. They look at the best of the best. It comes to the top, and that is what you see on the site. And that formula is how we work across all of our stock imagery, but it's also ways that we can work with you. So if there's something that you don't have on the site and it's something that you want to shoot on your own, we take all this knowledge and expertise and we can create that for you as well because of our depth and scale. So that's another option to work with us. And all of our insights is backed by data. So I'm going to share with you now some visual trends that we hand selected specifically for this meeting today, and to help you connect with your voters and your customers. So this is the fun part. What is the future of visual storytelling? So we're going to look at some of the visual trends and how it's reshaping our political vocabulary and what we're calling the age of inclusion. Okay, it starts with the crowd effect. And the crowd effect is all of us have camera phones now, and everyone's taking pictures, and that has really changed over the years. So it started 185 years ago, I think, with Kodak, and that was the first time that you could kind of document and share your experience. It put this in the hands of everybody. Then it became color, and that offered a whole new way of how we were documenting our experiences. The Polaroid. And if you think about the Polaroid, that was the first time that you could actually share your photo immediately with the people around you. And that's the beginning of Instagram. And when you think about the Instagram posts of how they look, it's really similar to the way that the Polaroid printed out, and kind of that shareability. Then the digital camera really changed everything. Now, instead of you having your roll of camera that you could take 24 pictures, you could take hundreds and hundreds of pictures. And the amount of pictures and who you were taking pictures of really changed and democratized the way that we start documenting our lives and who we are. And then finally, the game changer, the camera phone. And what's interesting about the camera phone, it wasn't just about documenting your lives anymore. It was about sharing your lives. So, the big question is, if you didn't post it, did it really happen? That this whole behavior changed, and it really expressed the way that we take the images now. It expresses our lives. We're documenting not just our photos, but who we are as people by the images we not only take, but the images that we share. That also means that there's a wider range of people taking images, sharing images, and showing the world from different viewpoints. And we've all been affected in this by the millennials a little bit. So when you think about the early adopters of this and the sharing and the social, I've got 3 girls. They're on Snapchat, they're on Instagram. Now I'm on Snapchat and I'm on Instagram, and I'm not a millennial because they're that audience, which is a key demographic, I think, for everybody in this room, are influencing a lot of our behaviors across the board. So even when you look at different segments that you want to reach, you need to look at who are the influencers that are driving change and connectivity. And without a doubt, the reign of the camera phone has done that. It's also changed the way that we look at imagery and what type of imagery we like. And we see even in these ad campaigns, that aesthetic of that camera phone is now front and center in an Apple ad, and how that storytelling is. And so the way that you need to connect now with your visual story, you need to take into account what's on your feeds and the ad campaigns of the consumers that you're trying to connect with. So there's this whole new era shot on mobile. But what's really interesting in this, if you look at this shot on mobile, and I can be fairly sophisticated in what I shoot on my phone, there's still a sense of production and style that's added to this. And I think that's the big change we talk about through the perspective of the camera phone, but the consumer still really connects to something that's got a little polish and production to it. And we see that ads, and specifically in social, when there is that little bit of thoughtfulness and art direction put to it, it actually scores a little bit better, engages more. So again, something to think about. It looked different this morning. But it's about visual participation. And I think, again, that's one thing that came from the reign of the camera phone, is you want to be there. You're participating in the campaign. You're participating in the image. And that perspective is now something that we're seeing a lot more of. And people feel like they're there and they're part of it. And I think that's the great part of visual storytelling as well. You can be part of the story and part of the dialogue. And here's just examples of this realism and symbolism, and kind of puts you front and center. And again, you still see this style in there. So while it's very much camera phone-like and participatory, there is a sense of production in it. So I'm going to get to some of the trends that I think are going to resonate a little bit. It's all about the new real. We've been talking about real and real America, and it's now kind of the real real. There's this new social expectation of images are representative of how they see them and how they're followed. There's a lot of backlash about retouching. So even Getty Images a few years ago, we don't retouch body shaping when we get the images. CVS, Target, a lot of brands are looking at this authentic and what it means, and retouching is a big part of it. I think consumers see when things are over retouched, and there's a negative feel towards that. So you want to make sure when you're creating content or when you're using content that you're really showcasing our lives and your lives look authentic and real. It's also across demographics, sizes, gender. The real is showing people as they are, and you're seeing that across the board. We're seeing that Getty Images front and center, more searches for that. In fact, when we look at our search data, so these are people that go on the site and they type in search, we're seeing this huge increase in inclusion. And inclusion is across the board. It's everything from gender change to diverse workplace to girl boss. And we're seeing exponential growth across all these areas. So we're seeing that our customers, all of the content creators and advertisers and creative people are searching more and more for this because that's what us as consumers are looking for as well. Is everybody familiar with the Fenty Effect? So this was a makeup line created by Rihanna, and I think she was just put on like the Forbes top 100, and it's not from her music, it's from her makeup line. And what she did is she created a line with a multitude of different skin tones. And that really resonated, and I think a lot of people were surprised how that resonated because she was showing the breadth of skin tones and how you want something that's going to work for you and not one size fits all. I think she was the Time Magazine's top 50 most genius company for this campaign. And then as soon as this happened, everybody tried to replicate it. Also talking about inclusion, it's about body shaping. So we're seeing searches for real bodies increase, but we're talking about real bodies. And you look at this, these are different ages, different body shapes, but there's more of an appetite to showcasing real women, and people are identifying with real women and real body shape, and they're looking for that authentic in the campaigns that are resonating. Here's an example, Madewell. This is a model, and she's not 25. And this is a broad, Madewell is a huge brand, and this is things that brands are doing on really reiterating this trend of kind of showing the real. Same with Aerie. So we have, I forgot the snowboarder's name, but she has a disability. We have Allie Reichman from the U.S. gymnastic team. We have different body shapes, different ages. Aerie is a brand, if you don't know. Again, I have 3 girls. I know this brand quite well. They're like a young lingerie, clothes line. And so we're seeing this real really coming to the mainstream. So this is an interesting slide. We look back what our most popular image was for the search for women over the years. So when you look at 2007, you can see she's obviously retouched. She's quite passive. She's looking into space. She's having a massage. And that was what the #1 licensed image was for women back 12 years ago. 2009, we don't see much of a change. In 2011, she's not your typical ideal of beauty, perhaps. She's on a journey. She's looking off to the future. So we see a little bit of a change. And what's interesting about this image, they were in Scotland, and the photographer that took this, they were on the train, and this was an outtake. So this is just an authentic moment that he captured, and it ended up really resonating and being the top seller in 2011. So we see now this authentic starting to resonate. In 2013, it's not about the woman, it's about the technology and what she's doing. And I think that's when, that immersiveness of always on and the technology was front and center. 2015 was the year of small business. We had a lot of images of bakeries and pasta shops, I think this is. So it was really about that rise and that woman empowerment and owning that small business. In 2017, you almost can't tell it's a woman. It's about her adventure. She's setting her course. It's a really interesting image to represent in 2017. And in 2018, this is a real game changer. She's looking towards the camera. She's engaging. She's shaking someone's hand. It's a business perspective. And in the first time, it's a woman of color. So I think we've made a lot of changes, and you can see how when you look at 2007 to 2018, how we represent women have evolved, though there's still a lot to do, but I think we're heading in a really positive direction. And most importantly, I think with that last image, she's real. And I think that kind of reiterates the trend from the first. Something we saw last year, and it's still continuing on, is women reclaimed. I think this has not gone away. I think this will continue to do and to resonate, this trend about real women. You know, we see the revolution of women front and center, even the evolution of the Me Too movement. So I think there's been a little bit of backlash. I was at a conference last week with the Cannes Lions, and actually Sheryl Sandberg was talking about the backlash of Me Too, that now a lot of men are afraid to have lunch with a woman separately on their own. I know, but if you don't have lunch, then how are you going to get promoted if your boss is a man? So it's kind of interesting in that side of it, that it's still front and center, but there's a little bit of a difference than it was last year, but it's something that's not going away. The other side to that is Masculinity Undone. So we tend to put women front and center, but there's a vulnerability to men as well, that men have a softer side. Men are parents. Men are not stereotypes. When you look at the stereotypes, you've got the eats meat, dresses well, the buffoon, the action hero, the strong silent type sitting on a car, and my favorite, the jock with the great abs. But men are so much more than this, but we tend to stereotype men as well. You want me to keep the slide on a little longer? This is actually an Amex small business ad. So it really is the vulnerability of men as the caretaker and making sure we're representing men as real. And it all falls under the real, representing images to tell your story in an authentic way, and it resonates. And we're seeing that brand starting to capitalize on this. And it's something that we take very seriously at Getty Images. Here's just a snapshot of the many faces of the modern dad that we have on our site. Another part of the real is the Lgbtq community. So there is an awareness and an acceptance, specifically within the celebrity era, and it's part of our day-to-day. But yet a lot of the advertising does fall behind in this and kind of representing this in a way. So we're seeing it in a lot of movies, but we're not seeing it, represented in a real inclusive way yet still within the ad community. But we're seeing starting to change. So this is ads for Sephora. And you can see this is a pretty mass brand, and now using all of the different they, she, ze, he, X. We belong to something beautiful and kind of that more inclusive. So we are seeing it to now start break through in a little bit with some more mainstream brands. But we say it's more than love is love, just making sure when you are showcasing whatever it is, you're doing it in an authentic way. And it's not just two really cute white men holding hands, that you're really thinking about what the real and you're really demonstrating love in an authentic way, no matter what it is. So one of the other trends is livable tech. So, we all have our phone. I've got my iWatch on. We count our steps. It is really part of our ethos this day, and it's something that is top of mind with consumers, but it's top of mind of how it helps them live their life better. But with that also becomes some privacy and fear issues as well. So there's that kind of way to talk about privacy, or when you feel that you're being targeted, in a way that still is healthy and transparent. So when we think about what's happening in culture today, a lot of these movies and future, it's not about walking in Mars or being on spaceships. It's about our integration with technology and computers, everything from Mr. Robot to humans to the circle. So, we're kind of taking these themes that are here already, and it's expanding. And that does cause a little bit of, angst with consumers, because it seems real enough, because it's close to how we are engaging with technology today. And so how do we keep that real human behavior and that fear? Even when you look at the Super Bowl ads from last year, you had Michelob Ultra had its human robot. We have this Pringles. Mercedes-Benz was highlighting voice command features. So a lot of this technology is being engrossed in our everyday, but there is still some concern. So you just have to make sure when you're integrating that, because it's important to us, that it's done in a way that is more positive. So the industry is also looking at the implications of the importance to consumers. So Apple picked up the conversation about privacy, and they're being front and center about it. So instead of hiding about it, they're being more transparent in it, and that seems to be resonating. One of the other trends that we're seeing, which I hinted to, is kind of humanizing tech. So we're seeing more searches for smart speakers, rideshare, smart city. So all of this is now part of our lives and part of our ethos, and a way that connects to consumers today in the way that you tell that story. In fact, YouTube, I think 51%, I think I actually have it written there, say it's very important that they turn to YouTube when they want to figure something out. It's like the how-to. I do it myself as well. So that's another tool that people go to, and they search all the time to find out more information and to get their story that way. This wasn't working, so I'm going to skip this, but this is a great ad by Samsung. And we see that in the images. So we see that the human touch is something that's important from a technology standpoint, and overall the human touch. And we see that resonating in the type of images that are being searched more and more often, this human touch. We're a society surrounded by tech objects, but we don't want it just to be about the tech. We need to have that human touch with it. Third trend, radical wellness. And I think this kind of follows the tech a little bit when we talk about our steps. And, you know, I get my alerts to breathe on my Apple iPhone, that this is really, this wellness and self-care is really an important part of day-to-day. And I think it really resonates as well with healthcare and wellness being so topical from a political standpoint, but it's really important to consumers overall. And in fact, we're seeing the first time nature is being searched on our site exponentially, and this is a shift, and a cultural shift, and a significant one that we haven't seen before. So this is about climate, it's about nature, it's about healthy, and we're seeing a huge search from the millions of searches that we see just this past year on nature. And it's everything from keto. I've tried the keto. I don't know if you have. It's tough. It's about a personal chef. It's vegan. Vegan is a big thing across the board that we're seeing. Healthy, free-range chicken diet, cooking healthy, you know, in general, this is really important to consumers today, and it's a trend that we're seeing representing visually as well. And what's interesting about this trend is the simplicity of it, and we're seeing that aesthetic translated into visuals. So we're seeing that simplicity of health and cooking and vegan and simple in ads. It's white space. It's the way that it is arranged. What does that mean? It's the way that it is designed and stylized, and we're seeing that resonated more, and we're seeing consumers reacting more to images that are styled in this way. It's that negative space and white space balance. And so again, sometimes when you want to break through, it's more about the simplicity of the image. This is also driven, I would say this is very driven from millennials. I think millennials, 60% say they only eat foods with natural ingredients. So I think this is a trend, as I said earlier, that a lot of the millennial behavior is now spreading to the older and younger generation as well. And here are just some examples of this plant-based revolution, and this is geared towards men. Del Taco is working with, it's surprising, they're working with the NFL, Major League Baseball, getting athletes to sponsor to talk about this vegan health style. So it's not just a woman going on a diet. It's about health and wellness and climate and a better life. It's beer, but it's healthy. Live fit, live fun, live ultra. So you're seeing, you know, this is a trend that is quite mass, so it's important to a lot of consumers. And again, it goes back to the real. All the trends kind of intersect. Here, this is technology, it's healthy, and it's real. You're seeing different body shapes, different sizes, different ages. And this is for Fitbit. These are the most similar to what we did with women when we look at the most popular images for eating through the years. So we see it's the ice cream, it's the hot dog, to when we get to 2018. you're searching, try to think outside of the way that you're going to use it or the message you want to tell, and more about what that person is that you want to find, or that image is that you want to find, and that may help. So instead of saying angry taxpayer, look for real, authentic, not smiling. Yeah, Yuri's got. Yeah. You know, we can. We could do that for you too if you wanted.
I have a question that sort of goes off of that a little bit, which
Yeah.
is this intersection between realistic and aspirational, right? So like a lot of the images you showed that were meant to be representational of the real still felt sort of aspirational, which makes sense to me because if you're running an ad campaign, specifically a corporate ad campaign, you're selling something, right? You're selling a feeling, you're selling a life, you're selling a vibe, and arguably so are we. So I wonder how real is too real when you're in advertising, and do you all in your search terms do you ever get one step further, like more real than this? You know, like
It's so funny. We're talking like the new trend is real. It's
Right.
like that step further.
But I don't know if you agree or disagree that a lot of your real people, maybe it was just how they're lit and how it's shot, they're beautiful because as much for the art direction as from the person itself. But do you have an opinion about walking that line when you're selling something or someone?
I mean, I think you need to be genuine and real and authentic in the imagery. And part of our missions is, in the collections that we look at, are breaking stereotypes. So I think it's also the bias that we bring into of what we think real looks like a little bit as well, and who we want to represent. And again, you're seeing my lens of the images that I chose and my bias a little bit in that. So, you know, I'll definitely take ownership of that. I think it's just thinking about who you're connecting with. It goes back to understanding your customer, your voter, and how you want to identify and what's important to them, and making sure you're representing that in as authentic way as possible. And an image is worth 1,000 words. Like, that hasn't changed. So I think there's even that much more pressure on finding imagery that works to tell that story or video. Because if it isn't real, we pick up on it. We're savvy. We're much more savvier than we used to be. We know when we're hit with things that are played to us a little bit. But it is an interesting line because you have the perspective of the creator in there.
Yeah. And did you do the exercise about the most sold pictures of men? I wonder if it's changed. Like you talked about a trend where men show their vulnerable side, but
Yeah.
are people buying that, or is that just a trend? Are people
Yes,
buying?
we're seeing more of that. So I didn't do that, but we are seeing this, and I think part of it is we started with this trend a few years ago called gritty women, and it was women like out and exercising and power and being dirty, and you know, we've kind of seen this evolution, and then from that I think there was this backlash of what about the men? Like, the men aren't always the buffoons, and we have been seeing more. They're not all the buffoons, and they're not all the abs either. There's that piece of it. So we are seeing that because a lot of brands, and again, I just came from an advertising conference, it's all about inclusion and diversity and authentic and making sure you're representing the world. And brands are making a stand. And as soon as brands start advertising this in more mass, then without even thinking about it, it becomes more front and center with consumers. So when you see brands like Apple, and Burger King, and you know, a lot of these brands, Geico or whoever it may be, Michelob and Coors, start showcasing this of, you know, men and women in different type of experiences they've seen before. It becomes part of our cultural ethos, and it's kind of this system. Then we see more of those searches, and then the brands do it, and it creates more of our awareness, and it happens without us even realizing at times how that's influencing us. So that's the thing. I think it's just always being aware of what's happening culturally around us, because it touches all of us in different ways, but it touches us and it changes our perceptions. Yeah.
Like obviously, like you can't use a lot of stock images, but there's also times where you know, obviously with a candidate you have to get originals. So is there anything from your research that would inform, you know, the way we stage photos, the way we try to arrange things, and anything you could share on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a whole other part of our business that we call custom solutions, and I hinted at it a little bit in the beginning. So because we have all of this education that we do with our photographers on how to shoot, how to stage, the angles, the lighting, all of that, we could do like a crowdsourced library, for example. So you would give us a brief of what you're looking for, and it could be specific towns, it could be demographics. We'd work on that with you. And then we basically put that brief to a hand-selected contributor network of what we want, and we work with you on that. And then you get your own stock library that's exclusive to you, that's kind of shot that you could use, and it's another cost-efficient way that you could also supplement with the stock imagery, but then get some more imagery if you're looking to tell a more specific story. And I'm sure Yuri's happy to chat about that with you. I am as well. But that's another way that we can help. I mean, we spend a lot of time and training of our photographers and videographers.
Build their own reels of angry-looking taxpayers.
Yeah, there you go. You could. You could. And then no one else could use it. Any other questions? Heather, you had a question.
I just wanted to say, we have plenty of Pinterest fail moments at gettyimages.com. So if you were doing kitchen table topics literally and wanted like the Cheerios ground into the floor and the homework is everywhere and the parents lost their keys and it's real life all day long, you will definitely find that too, for sure.
I think part of it is the way that you're searching, and that's something we could even do a follow-up and get everyone's information. We have like a search guide 101 tip, because again, I think we end up searching for what we want to use it for and maybe not the story of the person behind it. So we're happy to share it with you too. Yeah.
And your research here is very interesting. So is it people searching for these new types of images and buying them? In other words, are they thinking of new ways of portraying men or women or kids or people of color and then defaulting to what they've always done? Or are they actually buying these different images?
Yeah, it's both. So we look at searches, and we look at downloads, and we look at buying. We kind of look at that all together. And we look at it through the years, because we've been doing this for 25 years. We have a lot of this proprietary data that we can look at lifts up, lifts down, how that changed. At the same time, we'll look at what's happening culturally. So there may be something that, because there's so many searches that we didn't think about, but we're seeing something happening culturally, and then we'll go back and we'll search and see, are we seeing more of this? And we're like, wow, we are. So it's kind of a combination, but a lot of it is searches. And again, I think because we're being searched for the most part by professionals, we kind of get to see the trends before they happen. You're seeing the trends before the campaign hit. And when you see those similarities happen.
Do you categorize by industry, like political searches versus corporate brand searches, or is that like proprietary privacy infringement? And what like men for like branded ad campaigns is different than political campaigns. Yeah. Automotive. Right.
Yeah, I mean, we have some of that we could talk separately to you. We have some we could look at without telling you who. We could look at 10 type of accounts of a certain way to see kind of what their download history has been, to get that perspective. We just finished actually a financial presentation. We did just that. We looked at some of the top 10 financial advertisers with us. We looked at their brand guidelines. We looked at what they downloaded, and we looked at some similarities or trends that were happening of what they were all searching for. It was an interesting competitive analysis as well, as like they're all trying to say the same thing. And then how are they going to differentiate themselves then? So we could work with you. It's not something like I have on the ready to give out. It's more of a selective, but yeah, we have all that insight. Yeah.
One last thing, because I think this past year we've seen a lot of women run for office. If you could just talk about Show Us and how at Getty we're showing how women are being represented.
Yeah, don't you love getting like a softball question from your colleague? And this is like near and dear to my heart, because I've been working on this project for a year and a half. But we just launched something called Project Show Us. And it gets to the first slide about, we really feel if you change the image, you can change perception. And at Getty, we feel that we have a responsibility to make sure we're showing the world as it is and putting that out there as an option. So Project Show Us is something we did in combination with Dove and Unilever and Girl Gaze, which is a network of female photographers, to shoot real women. They're not models. We shot in 39 countries, and we did a lot of research to see what those stereotypes were in each of those countries, and then shot to break those stereotypes. And the big difference was it was 100% shot by women. Because 90% of the content creators out there are men. And so you've got men defining what beauty looks like. And so we looked across age, size, skin, gender, kind of across the board, and put this campaign of royalty-free imagery out there. And it's gettyimages.com/show-us if you want to see it. And then Dove used 36 of the images for their own campaign. So again, it's a brand going out there showing imagery that hopefully will change, and we're kind of asking the advertising community to join us, because I think if we're all together, if we want to break stereotypes, we're kind of stronger together.
And 6 out of 10 women felt misrepresented in advertising.
They did, yes, actually 70%. 70% of women feel misrepresented in advertising. And that's something to think about. If you want to connect with women, and we know women are a powerful voice these days, and a powerful political voice, make sure when you're showing women that you're showing women. And not what they idealize beauty of women across the board from a demographic. And demographic is age, gender, color, across the board. Okay? Great.
I feel like I want to make a political ad of like these guys actually going down the hill, right? Like, this is what politics can make you feel like. Awesome. Okay, I think we're going to go right into the next panel, which is leveraging digital communication platforms for success in 2020, which I guess is going to be right here. Almost. Bam. So my co-host, Joanna, is going to be moderating this session. So if the panelists will come up and they can introduce themselves. We have Facebook and Twitter here, which is exciting.
So if you guys are patient with us, I think we need about a minute to switch the technology here. And then we will then start. Each presenter has their own presentation, and then we'll take, I'll ask some questions, and we'll take questions from the audience at the end. But if you can just be patient for about a minute while they figure out what to do here, that'd be great. Thank you.